Clemson, you're right. I would say that they are at minimum ACC championship or bust.
We'll talk about the Bill Connelly list dropped. The first one, everybody's been waiting on it. And it's talking about, of course, returning production heading into, 2025. Last year, teams like Oklahoma State was at the top, Iowa State, Stanford, Virginia Tech, like all these were in the 2024 range. So I was curious, is there a correlation between that and, winning the national championship going out there? Obviously, Oklahoma State, not so damn much. But Iowa State was in their conference championship game last year, and they had 86%. So they dropped those numbers for 2025 initially. And then
let's take a look at what we're referring. I'm going to put it up what Brendan's referring to here.
Yeah. So this is this is from College Football Numbers, a great account. If you're on Twitter watching, make sure you follow them. They're I love these types of graphs and graphics. It's just, I don't know, to me it's just so plain and lays it right out. So here you see at the top, going up 80%. That's your returning production on the left-hand side. And then across, that's your consensus power ratings from Kelly Ford. So obviously Ohio State finished number one. They're on the far right. But as you look, top right's kind of where you want to be with, your returning production numbers. And then also, where you were finalized, in your power rankings. So I'm curious what you guys think about this chart. Ohio State, Georgia, that little couplet down there with Ole Miss and Oregon. What do you think about them and maybe Clemson with over 80% coming back?
I actually like where they have a lot of these teams, to be honest with you. Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, they're all losing a lot of talent. Mm-hmm. And, they're bringing in a lot of, which out of the transfer portal, those teams are always going to restock and reload, but it's certainly not going to be what they were last year, or at least I wouldn't expect them to be. But Clemson, they've got a lot coming back. And, I mean, I know at some point we're probably going to cover it, but it's a, natty or bust for Clemson this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got to go far with this roster, because if they don't, it's going to be, a few years before they're back up there.
Man, I hate it. I hate this. Look, Clemson, at minimum, they have to win the ACC.
Yes.
They have to win the ACC. Let's just call it what it is. They have to walk out of the ACC as ACC champs. And then whatever happens in the playoff kind of is what it is. Because once you're in the playoff, in my opinion, anything can happen. But they have to get a home game. Because correct me if I'm wrong, they're not changing that home game. Or no, they would have the first round bye. Never mind. Well,
so
if they won the ACC,
that might
get
change.
The first round bye.
Yeah, that might change. We don't know.
Are they changing
yet.
that? Yeah. Okay. Well, they haven't announced that yet. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So Clemson, you're right. I would say that they are at minimum ACC championship or bust, and I would say at minimum expected to do a 10-win season or bust. But I would say the with everything that's going in, I would say that Clemson has high expectations. Looking at the chart, I'd say Penn State walks into the next season with high expectations again, coming off of a season that they just had. I haven't looked at the schedules for all these teams yet, so that remains to be seen. I can't wait.
Can you pull that chart back up?
Yeah, I'll get the chart back up. But I would imagine Bama probably has some high expectations this season. They had some really good recruits. Indiana, they're going to drop off. I don't care what returning starters they've got. I just don't think that they're going to get lucky enough with the schedule that they had again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're Auburn. My God, Auburn has very high expectations this season, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, just looking at that chart, there's several teams on there, like you pointed out, like Indiana. I think they're going to have a bit of a drop-off. Louisville, who I kind of liked, but they've had so much turnover. I mean, they've only got 80 scholarship players this year.
Right.
And so teams like that, BYU, Utah, what are they going to be? There's a
Yeah.
lot of teams on there that have a lot of unknowns that are on the right side of the chart where you'd want them to be.
Yeah.
And then you got teams like Bama. I know it's doesn't have us very high on returning production, but the production that left, like Jalen Milroe, was basically a one-man show, but he was ass and a half. And with him being gone, I mean, I think we trend upwards offensively. I would have Alabama honestly up there on the production side because we returned a lot of players. Just him leaving and Justice Haynes leaving were really the two big ones. But like Ryan Williams returning is huge. We got like 8 starters coming back on defense. Almost our whole offensive line's back. Jam Miller's back. We're really just changing quarterbacks. Everything else is pretty much the same. Florida, I think Florida's got very high expectations, and they've got a very difficult schedule. Michigan, I think they're the same boat as Alabama. If they get it together at quarterback, I think they're going to be a very tough team to beat next year. Wisconsin, they got a lot of question marks for playmakers, quarterback. There's a lot of question marks on this chart. It's not as simple as just looking at it.
Right.
Well, I think the biggest thing is it's so many quarterbacks changing at the top schools, like for that we would consider, right. So that's why
and
teams like
Clemson
coaching, so that's why you look at like Penn State right now has so much hype because they bring back a veteran quarterback, albeit as Drew Lar, he's had moments of great games, but then when the biggest ones, it's like I don't know, between him and James Franklin, there's moments.
Just Penn State's also lacked that like playmaker. Saquon Barkley, you could give him the ball, he'd make something happen.
Yeah.
I have not seen anybody at Penn State that's been able to do that, honestly, since Saquon Barkley. And that puts a lot on a quarterback, no matter how talented they are, that you've got to have somebody that makes plays.
I mean, their running backs are really good. I think both almost had 1,000 yards rushing, but it's just, again, that
explosion. The explosion's not there. Yeah, exactly.
Because you could use Saquon, he'd run routes. He'd run, the wheel route. Nobody could stop him. So you're curious to see what happens with Penn State. Clemson, of course, with Klubnik coming back. That's why, I mentioned on the Twitter page, is it, natty or bust? Blake just said it. It certainly feels that way. And Trevor, I agree. They better win the ACC. Like, if I'm a fan of them with everything they've got returning, and not all. We've said it too. Not all returning production is good production, but it's it's still stats. We saw that with Oklahoma State last year. Top of returning production, but they folded like a fucking wet paper sack.
And and the same goes for on the chart. OU is kind of up there with returning production, but that production was a bunch of trash.
Well, I will say it does. Remember, this does count in transfers too, so they've got a hell of a quarterback coming in.
They do. Okay,
but I do agree. A lot of that offensive production was like, okay, that's coming back. That's great, but you're hoping that quarterback really elevates, from what Jackson Arnold, was doing.
Or lack thereof.
So we'll see what happens. But I love the charts like that. It's an interesting thing to look at and see how the correlation is. Because pulling it up, I think last year Ohio State was only at 65%, I think, returning production, and they won the national championship.
And now they're below the 50 percentile mark now.
Yes,
as far as returning production.
Yeah, so the national top 10 on returning production, again, per Bill Connelly, we got Clemson at 81, Arizona State at 79. Big hopes for them again this season, returning quarterback. Illinois, same type thing, returning quarterback. They're at 76%. Texas Tech, returning quarterback. So they're hoping that they can do something in the Big 12. And then you got
too, I think.
Yeah, Kennesaw State's at 73%. Texas A&M at 71. Rutgers 71. Vandy at 70. Boise 69, and Oklahoma at 69. So great numbers on the last two. We love to see that. But we'll see what shakes out with those. A lot of new faces across the league. I just wonder how it's going to break down. So again, college football numbers, if you haven't followed them, you need to, because I love seeing that. It just breaks down the game just a little bit more, the advanced stat type stuff.